This is the Stacking Days podcast, the podcast about the healing experience of recovery for people of color by people of color. This show is for the purpose of education and connection and is not a replacement for therapy or recovery care. We suggest you seek out the support of a trained professional for guidance with your specific circumstance. I'm your host, Ray Donovan, and I've been alcohol-free since September 2021. Welcome to the show. Hey y'all, what's going on? Welcome back to the Stacking Days podcast. Have a great guest for us today. We've been playing email and Instagram Messenger tag here now probably for, a month, maybe a little bit longer. She even at one point had taken a hiatus from social media. She went completely dark on me. So I'm very excited about the fact that we've finally been able to arrange this. We have Markita Renee with us today. She's going to be sharing her journey, her story, all the fantastic things that she's doing now, living a sober lifestyle. She's a pretty dynamic woman, and I'm really excited, as I always am, but particularly today to have her on the show. So without further ado, Markita, welcome to Stacking Days.
Thank you, Ray, for having me. And he hit it on the nail. We definitely have been playing trying to catch up with each other. And I definitely wanted to keep my word because I am a woman of my word. When I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. No matter how busy I am, I will fit in that time. So I appreciate Ray for, being flexible with me and allowing me to be here with you all, beautiful people, to share, who I am and the wonderful things that I'm in the community doing, that I can be of hope and of inspiration to you all. So again, Ray, thank you for the warm welcome.
Absolutely. And we're going to get into all of that. I'm excited for Markita to actually share what she's up to, because I think there's a lot of resources that the community can tap into, particularly, for the people of color and, the BIPOC community. But before we kind of get into all that, Markita, maybe we can kind of rewind back to the beginning and maybe start at the top of your journey, kind of how you got into substances, what substances were kind of your vice, and let's kind of just progress through that timeline leading up to you being your sober self.
Sure. And I apologize, you all. Like I have been having some irritation in my right eye. So I'm going to get through this, right? Like I am going to get through this tonight. So I apologize.
You're all good. You're all good. This is just an audio podcast. Okay. So they can't see what's going on like okay. I can.
Oh my gosh.
You're good.
So great question. I think that is a great way to start off, is really just kind of taking you all through the valley, right? The valley of darkness, because substances, we don't even realize that it's going to turn into a dark world until we are in it, right? Mm. So my journey started, I was being the black sheep of the family and being someone who I've always been an outgoing person, and I've always been confident in myself, and I played sports and I did a lot of things just to seek validation from my parent, my mother, right? Because I was the middle child, and being the middle child, I was very protective. And that being protective, I stood up for my sisters. But my sisters really always had negative things to say about me. They loved me, but where the hurt really came from was from my mom. I felt like this last marriage that she was in, she got married while I was on summer back home, and I come back and my mom is married. So we never went to a wedding. We didn't even know who this guy was, and our relationship changed drastically. And so from adolescence, which would be my teenage years, I started to experience a lot of emotional trauma. And like I said, I didn't take notice of it until she was in this new relationship. So with that emotional trauma led to me being a very rebellious teenager, because all I wanted was my mother's attention. I just wanted her affection again. Like all that was abrupt. So I didn't know how to express my emotions, if that makes sense. So
Mhm.
one thing's led to another. I just started to, like I said, be very rebellious. And this is when we were living in Atlanta, Georgia. So I stayed there for about 10 to 12 years and got into a lot of trouble.
Mm.
And that trouble led my mom to say, you know what? I called uh, a charge, 13 years old. So we ended up moving back home, which is my home state of Tulsa. So during that time frame of high school, I was really into my sports. I played basketball. I was a point guard. So, I was very, very popular. I'm only 5'1", so I'm very petite. So
You must have been fast.
I ran track. I ran the 100 and 200 relay meters. So I was a very fast girl during that time. But I was still missing something, right? I
Mhm.
was still hurting internally because I couldn't understand how my mother just switched gears on me and just put me down and told me I wouldn't be nothing, told me I wasn't shit and I'd never be anything. And the B word, bitch, was her favorite word. Like, and that
Mm.
hurt, So that really, 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 really hurt. And my sisters, kind of didn't have anything to say. So it was just me against the world pretty much during that time. Well, speed it up, went through things in high school like we normally would. And I ended up meeting someone in college. I went to a HBCU myself, Langston University,
Okay.
and started that journey. And of course, that was the best time of my life, right? Because I'm like, I'm free. I don't have to deal with nobody being negative to me. Like, that's where college life was like everything for me. And that was the first time I experienced alcohol.
Mm.
So going to a frat party and being on the yard and just, seeing all these different cultures and walks of life around me and seeing people that look like me, just like all these different black people. And it's just like, yes, I am loving this energy. But that energy led me to having my first drink. Um, and I'll never forget, it was Hennessy.
Mm.
And at a frat party, they like to mix a lot of drinks that don't probably need to be mixed, okay? And so
Yeah. Yeah.
I had I forgot the terminology we used to say back in those days. But yeah, that Hennessy turned into being something else. So
Huh.
that was the start of me feeling escaping, right? Escaping from my reality of pain, of feeling like, I am something. That's at least what I was trying to tell myself. Like, I am something. Like, she might not think I'm something, but maybe somebody else is telling her that because I've never heard her say that. But so, living my best life in college and then boom, get pregnant. So when that situation happened my sophomore year, the father, he was from California, and he was like, I don't want the baby. I'm too
Mm.
young. I didn't come down to Oklahoma because that's where Langston is
Was
at.
was he a classmate of yours?
He was under me. He was a class under me. So he was a
Gotcha.
freshman and I was a sophomore.
Okay.
So in his eyes, he's like, I'm too young. I didn't come down here for all of that. You need to have an abortion, blase, blase, which I did. Okay.
Mm.
So speed it up. Single mother, pretty much the entire time I had my son. And then 4 years later after that, I meet my daughter's dad. And that's when I got introduced to pain medications after
Mm.
having her. So 2009 was a different world for me because on top of dealing with emotional trauma, I was dealing with a lot of rejection trauma from my baby daddy. He just would put me down. He would be verbally abusive and he never was physical, but it did lead to a time where being spat on I just felt degraded, right? And here I
Yeah.
am, a mother carrying, I got your child, your son, and he just despised me for whatever reason. So that pain, on top of the emotional pain, it was just pain built up. So when I first experienced taking a pain medication, I just gave birth, and that is what the hospital gives you after you give birth.
Mm.
They're like, This helps really alleviate the pain because, baby, that pain is unbearable. So I took that. It was a Percocet 10. And that euphoric feeling was like no other feeling that I've ever felt. It was way better than the alcohol. Like, I don't know how to describe it. It was just like everything, I was just floating, right? And so that was the start of my addiction to pain medications. So for 9 years, I battled with that dark addiction. So on top of that addiction, I had the alcohol. On top, I smoked nicotine. I smoked Black and Milds, which are cigars. So I started smoking those during college as well. So everything was kind of like happening all at the same time. And I was still emotionally hurt. I was like, okay, if I pop a pill, I don't have to feel the pain. Like, I love myself. Like, I started to have all these different feelings of happiness and joy and just, living life again without worried about this man who really don't love me. Like, who really clearly don't love me, but for the sake of me trying to make it work with my daughter's dad, I'm like, okay, I'll just drown myself with these pills. And that's basically what I did. Pills led me to the street pharmacists. Street pharmacists, of course, as we all know, people who selling their pills. So I started to have all these connects. I had at least 20 different connects, and connects that you would find me and, pulling up at anywhere that this person was, I'm pulling up, because by then my body has become immune. So I was going through withdrawals.
Yeah.
So those withdrawals, and as people on the outside world will call it dope sick, I started experiencing that. And I realized once I took a pill that dope sick would go away. So I'm like, well, I guess I got to just keep this habit up, right? By then it's turning into, I just got to keep this habit up so I don't get sick, because I was working. I've always had a good job. I'm still a mother taking care of 2 kids. I still, have bills and everything else, but I started to slip into, I'd rather get high than pay my bills.
Right.
I would rather, go stand in the line to get energy assistance, get utility assistance, rather than use that money to go pay my bills. So my habits began to start turning into me not caring anymore.
Was there a certain point where you were no longer as high functioning, where the habit really started just to kind of etching into other aspects of your life that you felt as though you were doing a pretty good job at keeping together?
So you know what? I am blessed to honestly say no. No one ever expected anything. No one. Like, people knew, okay, you go to the liquor store, like that's considered like the thing to do, sure, right? I'm at the liquor store. Everybody goes to the liquor store. So, it wasn't nothing to hide from that. I just drank with everybody else, right? But with the pills, nobody knew. I mean, I always got up, went to work, dressed like I would normally dress. But when I was sick, I noticed, and people around me would be like, why you always got an attitude? I'm noticing, you mad all the time and things like that. So people started to ask, like, why my mood switched up, and they didn't know what was behind it, right? I'll just be like, I just don't feel good today. Right. But I had to start catching myself of not saying I don't feel good, right? Because I'm like, I don't need nobody to be like,
getting too far into your business.
What's going on with you? Like, why? But they started realizing that I was losing weight because the pills was making me lose weight. So of course I would start hearing the side talks like, she must be on that shit. Because Black folks, that's what we say when we ain't really trying to direct what's going on. So we go just say they on some stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And I used to always deflect it like, whatever. But they would never address it to me. I would just hear from the grapevine, right? Mm-hmm. So I always kept myself together. Never really looked like I was slipping, or where I was like, oh gosh, now I need to go to heroin because I'm not getting high no more from these pills. Like, I'm just because that's normally the next phase. When you're not getting high no more from the pills, you got to up. Okay, so what can I do? And that's normally
that's an extremely dangerous step to take.
Extremely dangerous. So thankful God is good, because that is something I never had to experience, but still, I can't even touch on that because I didn't go through it, right? But what led to me the first time, right, that led to me realizing that I probably did have a problem was my daughter's dad went behind my back and met up with my mom. Now, me and my mom hadn't had a close relationship all these years. So he went to her and was like, I think something going on with Markita. You know, I seen these pill bottle, but it was empty and it was like 180 pills and they was gone, like gone. I would pop like 2 or 3 at a time, right? So she called me and was like, what's going on with you? You know, your baby daddy told me that something is off with you. And I'm just like, oh, you're concerned? Like, okay. Make a long story short, she did what she could. She tried to step in and take me to a treatment facility. But this treatment facility was not for detoxing. It was for people who had a higher level of like schizophrenia and mental health disorders, like really, really high. They needed to be. So when I got in there, I'm like, where the hell? This ain't for me. Got out immediately. But the first day, I experienced the most sickness I've ever felt from being sick from withdrawals.
Because that's probably the first time where you had gone any extended period of like time in a day
exactly
without getting your stuff right.
Exactly. So that moment though, I was so sick. Oh my God, that sickness was just hell. But I'm like, this place ain't for me. Why would she bring me here? So as soon as I got out, I found my connect. I need some pills. So I still wasn't ready mentally to stop this habit. What really hit rock bottom for me is 2015. The guy that I was dating, by then I no longer was in a relationship, you know, and I'm in a new relationship and trying to heal from all the pain and just everything that people have said to me. And I'm just like, maybe it's true. Maybe I'm not nothing. Maybe I am worthless. Maybe I won't be anything because nothing good is coming out of my life, because by then I was trying to go back to school and that wasn't going right at that time. So just nothing was really going right. I had a car that was a bucket and I was struggling. But I was still getting up trying to be a mother, right? Because I'm like, I still got these babies that need me. By then, I let my son go stay with his dad. I had lost my job. And at that time, trying to take care of 2 kids, it was a little rough. So I'm like, this man ain't helped me all this time. By then, my son was 10. I'm like, can you just keep him for at least 3 months until I get back on my feet? And as soon as I get back on my feet, I'm going to come get him. This is the first time this man ever agreed, right? I should have knew then that was a red flag. I haven't seen my son since.
Really?
This is 2023. So now I got to add this on top of my pain. That was the hardest pain to ever do as a mother who one day had her child and the next day he was ripped from you. That's the type of pain I don't wish on nobody. Yeah. So yes, I went into a deep depression. I don't even know how I got out of it. My daughter is what really got me out of it, because I had to stop after 2 years of just crying and still trying to get myself together, but still popping pills, still drinking. When I got in this new relationship, I was all in love. I was so in love, head over heels, just head over heels. Didn't want to go to work no more. That's how I was, just like lost behind this man. Like, oh, he fine. Oh my God. Like, this is just like everything I wanted in a man, right? But he was fighting his own demons. He really was. And he was fighting for his life. But by then, I was too much into it, right? I was that down woman. Like, this my man. Like, I'm riding with him. Like, I don't care. 2015, my house is swarmed with police, task force. You got helicopters. You got my whole entire house is swarmed with police. And I'm like, shit. Okay, here we go. Go to jail. Got booked on charges for harboring a fugitive. Everything I lost everything. That is when I hit rock bottom. And I realized that my addiction, me being homeless, me not having no family, me now again replaying everything from what I experienced in my teenage years, it just really caught up to me to the point to where now I had to fight. Because they was telling me, this type of charge carries a term of 10 years in the penitentiary. Excuse me? So yeah, that type of information you hear, you have to do a double take and say, where's my life going?
Yeah.
Like, I have to get my shit together. And that's exactly what I did. For 3 years, I was on papers. For 3 years, I was homeless, moving from couch to couch, sleeping on floors. To family, I'm finding out who really for me and who against me. People, I mean, it was rough, but I still had my daughter that needed me. So I still had to figure out a way, like, how am I going to survive? I would go days without eating. It was just bad. It was rough. So from 2015 to 2018, I was going through that process of healing, right? And really just sitting still and looking at my entire life. It was like my life flashed in front of me. And I said, I can either go down this path that I've been on, which is, I'm sick. I'm trying to keep myself together, keep my composure without letting people know that I'm going through it, or I can face it and really, really get it heal and get free from this addiction, because that addiction was gonna take me out. I ran into a guy who had laced some pills with rat poison.
Mm.
So that situation was another wake up call for me, that I feel like God was telling me, this ain't the life for you no more.
Yeah.
I got way more stuff planned for you, but you have to want it. I'm not going to give it to you. You're going to have to fight through this, and I'm about to put you through hell to see how bad you want it. And I did exactly what I was called to do, which was I had to get obedient. The day they told me I was released from papers, because I couldn't leave my home state. I bound to the papers. I could not leave. The day they was like, Markita, you are a free woman, packed up and relocated 3,000 miles away from home.
Good for you.
Said it's time to start fresh. It's time to get my life together. And it's time to really go a different direction. And that's what led to, things along the way that has really changed my life. I never experienced going to rehab. I never, besides that one time, but that wasn't rehab. That was a crazy institution,
Yeah. And it sounds like more of just a shock to the system than anything else.
Right. But it's a journey of really rediscovering and renewing yourself, renewing your mind, and realizing that sometimes you don't have the resources to go to a rehab or a treatment facility or any of these things that the society has structured people who struggle with addiction to go through, especially people of color.
Yeah.
So I had to figure out another way, which was I said, let me try this spiritual. I didn't even know it was a spiritual journey. I just knew I started seeing things different when I had an awakening. And Ray, it's been a journey. It's been, the substances that I was on, it didn't lead to anything hardcore. But I know many people who have lost their life.
I mean, I think that there's so much nuance in, substance use. I mean, there's a lot of similarities that I think that we can all find across the stories, but no two stories are the same, right? At the same time. And I think that, before anything, first and foremost, I mean, obviously, this, and I've had the fortune of just speaking to so many very strong people on this podcast who've come out of some extremely dark days. And I just always want to take the opportunity to acknowledge your strength and acknowledge the guest's strength in being able to survive those challenging times. I mean, being homeless, is in itself, a challenge, let alone, dealing with an addiction, let alone still trying to deal with, traumas from your past and then throw the legal issues on top of that and the prospect of potentially having to be, put away for a decade, knowing that you're going to leave your daughter behind and, which I'm sure is probably the one thing that, is on your mind, I think, and also talking to enough people who have, suffered substances, like at the end of the day, folks stop caring about themselves and in large part, and they're more so concerned about, maybe that one or two loved ones are around them. So I just want to give you your flowers and shout out, for pushing through that. I think it's incredible. I know you know that, but I just wanted to say it. I think it's incredible and it needs to be recognized.
I appreciate that because people don't realize that, it's the fight that you put in for yourself that, that's where the hope comes in, and a whole different energy of strength comes in. So it just, I appreciate you saying those kind words because
Yeah.
I didn't hear that none the entire time I was fighting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry you didn't, but I'm glad you can hear them now, and I'm sure I'm not the only one that says them. So I wanted to so 2015 and 2018, you are effectively homeless. Are you with your daughter at that point?
Yes, my daughter never left my side.
Yeah. Okay, so it's you and your daughter, very much exposed. And so at that point in time, are you now in a sober state trying to heal as well as being homeless? Or was there a period where you kind of evolved into that stage of your journey while you were deplete of resources?
Good question. So during the first, year of that time, I heard no after no after no after no. Just trying to find a place. When you have a felony on your head, you are considered a liability. So there was, places that even just regular jobs, and no offense to anyone, who has worked in fast food. I've never had to, but I was so desperate during that time, I needed money. I needed to be able to take care of, just feeding us because I didn't have a place. So I still wasn't even ready to transition to getting myself together because that's the only thing that helped me get through the day, just trying
Yeah.
to find somewhere to, lay my head and be able to, just say, okay, we're good for the night. And then I would do my own thing because that just helped me cope. So that first year, it was just still me and my demons pretty much. And then an opportunity, shout out to my grandmother, because I thank her. I went to her one day, and I was just like, I'm at my wits end. Like, I don't know what else to do. No one is giving me a job. I'm hungry. I'm tired. And she was like, well, let me talk to my friend who is her son works at uh, a crisis unit. And, I don't know how it's going to go, but we'll just see. That was the starting point of me starting to heal because I'm looking at people just like me, but they're in crisis. They're struggling with an addiction. They are homeless. So now my life is theirs, but I'm working. So all I can do is say I'm a hypocrite if I'm trying to help these people and save them, but I'm not saving myself.
Right.
So my whole mindset started to shift because I started to really get connected to these people. And they started to really resonate with me, like, Markita, thank you. And I'm just like, why are they thanking me? Like, they don't really know I'm going through the same damn thing they going through. I just am carrying it better. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And then I just told myself, this ain't right. I'm like, no, like this opportunity was given to me for a reason because I still have my felony. He took a chance on me. He talked to HR and was like, and you know what's crazy? The day I had to do a drug test, I was high as hell. I was high as hell.
And you walked in there knowing that.
I walked in there knowing that, but let me tell y'all something. If you don't believe in God, you got to believe it right now because there is no way I should have passed that drug test. No way in hell. Because like I said, I had just smoked the night before. I just smoked that morning. I was trying to, cleanse my system out with potassium pills because water pills, not realizing this shit was draining my potassium. So my body began to cramp up. So I'm going in this facility trying to hold my composure and I'm cramping and I'm like, oh my God, but I'm high as hell. And they called, she was like, girl, you already knew you passed the test. I was like, girl, yes. Don't know, Ray, how I passed that test, but I did. And that was the starting point of I felt like God was saying, okay, yeah, you really messed up, but I'm gonna save you because I need you to,
Here's your shot.
yes, here's your
What you gonna
shot.
do? What you gonna do with it?
What you gonna do with it? And my schedule was 7 a.m., 7 p.m. to 7 a.m.
Hmm.
I didn't have no babysitter, but I just said, Lord, please, if somebody is willing to just keep my daughter for me. So by then, everything was starting to work. Everything was starting to go into place. And that's when I began to start healing and really working internally on what was hurting. But what really took the milestone is me leaving my environment, because what I realized is that you can't heal from an environment that made you sick.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
said, I gotta go. I got to bounce, and I've never looked back.
I think it's important to note, right, also that it sounds like you were you moving your environment lined up with the timing in you needing to heal yourself,
Yes.
right? Like you were ready
Yeah.
for that. And you set yourself up to try to find some success. And obviously you had a little bit of divine intervention along the way.
Divine intervention. That's it.
I love that. I love that. So talk to me about what the next couple of years look like. I mean, you obviously are starting to get some positive momentum behind you. You're gainfully employed, you're doing impactful work, you're reconciling, your truth with the folks who you are helping. And I'm sure that was probably also very therapeutic and kind of, going through that journey of recognition. What did you do outside of kind of tapping into the spiritual to remove the substances from your life long enough to the point where you could start doing a lot of that deeper work that has gotten you now to where you are today?
So, with the spiritual side of it, it was really more of me finding things that made me happy. I had to really change everything from the way I thought, from the things I ate, from the people that I, even had relationships with as far as family and old friends. I really started removing a lot of people from my life. And I really had to just go through that motion of detoxing my body. I had to just detox. And when I detoxed, I realized that it was not going to be just a 1 month, 2 month, 3 month thing. Our bodies is different, right? Depending on what substances we've put in it and how long you've been doing these substances. So all that plays into the factor of how long you go be sick. So it really just led me to going through that motion and, realizing that, okay, if I don't want to go, if I can get through day one, I can get through day two. So I really started to play, that reverse psychology with myself. Like, okay, just get through the first day. Find things to keep you busy, Markita. You working. So I really would, I kept a bag full of peppermints because my mouth would always have a lot of saliva in it going through this detox. So because I had to work, I didn't want that to be, noticeable. So, I had to start finding things that were going to help me along this journey. At that time, I didn't go, like I said, I didn't have a support group. I didn't have, any harm reduction medications that can help, relieve some of the symptoms. So I just got really, really still. And I asked God, I'm being obedient. Whatever you need me to do, I'm here to do it. No matter how hard it's going to be, I'm willing to fight. And that's honestly what I did, people. I literally just listened and listened to my body and listened to the things that it was telling me. When I hurt, when I craved, when I urged, I would try to think of other things, or like I said, just make myself busy. And that took time. I had to be patient during this process because if I rushed it, then I felt like I was going to rush back and slip back into relapsing.
Yeah.
So I had to just be patient with myself and give it time, because each day did become easier. The sickness did subside, but it was really just getting patient with myself and meditating and just really understanding my thought process, because I didn't know my thought process for years.
Yeah.
for years. Didn't even understand how the mind worked because it was so under the influence, right?
Yeah. I think that's one of the things that folks don't often talk about, in a lot of this, kind of sober, I'm just trying to, like, the glamorized sobriety that you see on social media oftentimes talks about the benefits of not consuming, a substance. Your skin's going to get better, you're going to sleep better, so on and so forth. But they never talk about you're going to be in a position to learn yourself for maybe the
Yes.
first time. And I think that is extremely powerful, primarily because people of color are so powerful, and we're
Mhm.
oftentimes not in tune or in touch with that power,
Mhm.
until we have, at least for the folks who have been numbed out or, escaping for so long, have had the opportunity to tap into that power, whether it be God power, whether it be the greatness in your DNA, however you want to,
Right.
categorize it. I just think that I love hearing about folks tapping into that, because it really does live on the outside of all dogma, right? Whether
Right.
you're in AA or you're in SMART or you're doing all these programs, you still got to tap into this otherness, that justifies you making the decision to move away from the substance for yourself, because
Right.
then you start really seeing who that self is,
Right.
and I think that that's extremely powerful. So thank you for mentioning that.
Yes, that is so important. Being self aware and being able to look at yourself in the mirror and say, who am I? Because we don't realize who we are because we have allowed our upbringing, society, friends, jobs, whomever to condition us. So until we break away from that mental blockage of living this image like everybody else is, you don't know who you are. You
Yeah.
just following the crowd. And I had to pull back and say, no, I'm a leader. I've never been a follower. And if I'm going to lead, I have to lead in the utmost powerful, empowering way and show people of color that, look, you might be here, but that doesn't mean you're going to be here. You have to fight. You have to fight and realize the importance of people that you have around you.
Mm. Yeah. Some good, some not so good.
Exactly. And I had a whole bunch of not so good ones because all they wanted was, I was the middleman when it came to, swerving people. They knew I had to connect. So they like,
Mm.
man, let me call Markita. She got the swerve. And I did. And then I realized they don't give a damn about me. They just want, you know what I'm saying? I got to connect to people. So I had to really unlearn all of this mess.
Mm. Mm. Well, you went from helping a certain type of person out to now helping out different types of folks, and on a different part of their journey. So let's fast forward. What are you up to these days? I know that you are very much an evangelical when it comes to, the healing process and living a life of sobriety and what that looks like for people of color. So maybe let's talk a little bit about where you're at today and what you're up to.
Awesome, awesome. I love to share where I'm at today because where I'm at today is just, you couldn't have told me this 5 years ago that this is where I would be.
Mm.
But hard work, dedication, and persevering, this is where you can be. So now, I have got my bachelor's degree in psychology with a minor in addiction. Thank
Nice.
you. So I graduated last spring. During that process, I have been making connections and partnerships, just using my voice, picking up the phone, calling these organizations, nonprofit organizations that, talk about recovery. And I've been using my voice to try to make a difference. I'm connected now to an organization called Smart Recovery,
Okay.
where I am also part of the DEI committee to try to make changes, to try to enforce, like, people of color, we need a space. And I'm happy to say that hard work has led to now me creating the BIPOC community, which is a recovery group for people of color. And we meet every Wednesday from 6:30 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And in this space, it's just a space for us to feel heard, to feel seen, and to feel like we have a community of other people that is going on, that's in the same journey as us. So I just started this about 2 months ago. So I'm doing that. I'm also partner with an organization. Oh gosh, there's so many organizations I'm partnered with now. I also run I facilitate a women's group, 22 Women in Recovery at a homeless shelter. So I do that every Tuesday. So, now it's just me using my story to give back. I go to colleges to speak. I go wherever I can use my voice to speak. I definitely am created myself to be a speaker, and my social media platforms. One of them specifically grew overnight just by me making one post. I went from really 1,000 people one night and wake up and I got 17K, and that was just all from me just using my voice and saying what is needed and what has been kind of suppressed for so long. And so I think people of color seeing someone who's unapologetic and unafraid to speak up on these topics, it's making its rounds around, it's getting its airways. So I'm not going to stop. I feel like this is my calling, my purpose, and it's only going to get greater later. I've just been also accepted into grad school. So I will thank you. I'll start that in this fall. So my goal is to one day be a therapist because we need it. We need to see more people of color in these spaces to help give back and change this dark cloud that has been over us for so long.
Yeah. I mean, we talk about this on the show every once in a while about the lack of, therapists of color, to support people of color who are struggling. I think that is, a need state that, oftentimes, we don't talk about enough. So, best to you on that journey for sure. And I'm sure you're going to continue to help a lot of folks. I wanted to ask you, when it comes to, the communities of color, in your experience, you run groups, you're obviously involved in a lot of different organizations. What do you think from a resource standpoint is lacking in terms of what's available generally to people of color who are seeking healing, who are seeking recovery and sobriety?
Great question. Well, for number one, we are underinsured. I mean, that's just first and foremost when it comes to mental health being a huge problem in this country. That it is like an epidemic, right? It truly is. And being in the community, and I work in the community, I see it. We lack the resources of, number one, the insurance. Number two is seeing other people that look like us in these spaces. Number three, not being afraid to actually get the services and connect. We have to stop hiding behind the scene and saying, I'm okay. We're not okay. We have to remove that shame and guilt. And I don't know where the resources are. We have to remove that because that's what's keeping you stuck. And that's what's keeping people from seeking the resources that are available. Again, a lot of it is, people are not even putting in the time to look for the resources. The resource could be dead in their face, right? And they still act blind to the fact, like, I didn't know about it. And it's like, how do you not know, especially if someone is, making announcements as much as they can? Yeah. So a lot of it also falls on the individual. They have to take accountability as well. If you want the help, it's help out here. It may be a little limited for us, but you have to be able to break through that barrier and say, no, I deserve to get just as much as help as anybody else, period.
Yeah. No, I feel you on that. I mean, and it's almost like search engine optimization. Like, it's almost like, how do we get this a little bit higher on the list of things that pop up when, you're looking for assistance. And I think that's important because sometimes you don't want to go, down, to the 10th page on Google to try to find something that's going to help you.
Right. And then when you do go to the 10th page, you're like, what the hell is this? Like, what? So it's doing a haystack situation.
Yeah. So we're gonna take the plane in here for a landing. I got a couple of questions that I want to ask you in closing. One, and I'm really curious of what you have to say just based off of the story that you've already shared. But in some of your darkest days when you were really struggling, you had already kind of identified that you had an issue that you were dealing with. how would someone on the outside have known that you were not okay without you explicitly telling them?
Oh, that's a good question. To be honest, they wouldn't have, just because of I've always, your environment will mold you, right? To be in survival mode. So when
Mm-hmm.
you are in survival mode, you move different. So because you have always been the confident one, the one who, is unafraid and fearless and all of these things, that makes people feel like you got it all together, like you are okay. And deep down, you're not, unless you speak up. So, honestly, for me, nobody would have known that I wasn't okay, because that's just kind of been my upbringing. I'm the soldier, pretty much. So it's time that we change that narrative, though. It's not
Yeah.
okay to be in silence and suffer. No, that's what leads to addictions.
Yeah, I think that's important. And I asked that question for a few different reasons. One, we oftentimes are in, hear stories of other people where we find out way too late that they were not okay. But I think that it's important to elevate what you just said, is that if you are in fact not okay, don't wait for somebody on the outside to identify that for you. It's okay to lean into your discomforts. It's okay to lean into you not being okay. And then to what you were saying a little bit earlier, how do we then, move forward in looking for help for ourselves?
Exactly.
I think that that's important. Last question I have is for someone who's sitting there and they're listening to this show and they have identified that maybe they're having their own issues, their own struggles that they want to be able to meet head on, but they have absolutely no idea what their first step is going to be. For someone who's in the recovery community and and works many programs to help people, like, what would you suggest to that person being their first step if they just don't know which direction to turn?
I love that question, because that is very, very important, because a lot of people don't know what first step to take. Yeah. And that's what keeps them stuck on even making that first move. So my advice, my suggestion would be, you really truly got to understand that this journey is for you. This journey of changing your life is all in your hands, right? And it's okay to not know, but it's okay to really, just walk around like you can't get the information on how to take the first step. So you have to get real with yourself and ask yourself, are you ready to go all in? Are you ready to make this change? Because we can talk about it, but it's the action. Talking don't get us nowhere, right? You have to actually put in the effort to say, okay, because recovery looks different for all of us. We all have a different way of looking. Some use, recovery tools like, for instance, smart recovery. Some go to NA, some go to AA, some go to church, some, do it. It's all different. There's no one shoe fits all in recovery. You just have to make it up in your mind. Today is the day. And understand patience. Okay, people, this is not going to be something that you overcome overnight.
Yeah.
Anything worth fighting for is going to be worth working hard for. So you have to put in the work. You have to keep up with the maintenance. And maintenance just means once you get to this other side of freedom and you can actually start living a healthier, well-balanced life, what are you doing to stay in that? Do you have a support group? What are you doing? You have to continue to keep that maintenance going, because we can always slip back at any given moment. Life is unpredictable.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you so much, Markita. I appreciate all that. I do want to make sure that folks know where to find you, because you are always talking and speaking the good word. You got, a lot of beautiful things that you can share with our community. Where can people find you for more, Markita?
So you can find me. I do have my website, which is markitarenee.com. That's MarkitaRenee.com. So you can definitely find more of my works on my website. I'm also on social media, Instagram. You can find me with I am Markita Renee, as well as on TikTok. Same thing. I am _ Markita Renee. So definitely come find me. Definitely, follow me. I'm always trying to pour into people, because look, we need it, and I'm very unafraid to say what I got to say. Right. So, If you need support, definitely check in to see what days I do my support groups, and come in and sit down and hang out and learn how you can also be a part of this growing community. So I thank you, Ray, for this time, and I just hope that this message reaches those that it needs to reach.
Thank you. I'll just say this last thing as a testament. I've joined Markita's BIPOC Wednesday meeting just to hang out. And, it's a great bunch of folks. And I think it's only going to continue to grow and continue to help folks. So I'll make sure that we post, a link in the show notes as well, so folks know where they can find that resources as well.
Great. Thank you so much.
All right, Markita, well, have a beautiful evening. Thank you so much for spending some time with us. And I'm sure that we're going to stay in contact.
For sure. Thank you so much, Ray. Have a good one. Be blessed.
Okay, you too. Bye. Thank you for listening to the Stacking Days podcast. If you'd like to get in touch with the show, email me at rdg@stackingdays.com or follow us on Instagram @stackingdays. If you like the podcast, please rate, review, subscribe, and by all means, share it with a friend who you think needs to be invited into the conversation. Until we meet again, be well, one day at a time.